You didn't stay at Princeton all that long that particular time. I mean, I occasionally tell people I was your last student at Princeton, although that then became false because when you eventually came back. But in 1972, you moved to Harvard.
It was a family decision that Taffy very much wanted to continue her education and to have a profession, and she'd become interested in going to medical school. And she'd even applied to Penn while we were living in Princeton, but didn't get in because at that time she'd been out a few years, not that many, but she was also a woman. They were not letting that many women in medical school. Anyway, certainly from Cambridge, there were many more professional opportunities at that time than there were in Princeton. And as I said, she went to Tufts Medical School, and that was right there a few blocks from where we lived.
And now you bought the house on Shady Hill Square, 1 Shady Hill Square, something that, an address which I remember once you would come to UCLA many years later for a colloquium talk or something, and they wanted to mail, have your check ready or something, but they needed your residential address. And I told the lady who handled these things, your address was 1 Shady Hill Square, and she said, "Don't make one up. I want the real one." And you collected fairly quickly, it seemed, a group of students at Harvard, just immediately created a community. You had Joe and Dave Morrison and Bob Friedman.
Ron Donaghy
Right.
came along, and that was also a wonderful period, and that was now much more not mainstream in the French style, but mainstream in what one might call the Cambridge style of algebraic geometry. Of course, you had David Mumford, my colleague, Mike Artin at MIT. So, and David, of course, is, as you know, extraordinary in algebra, geometry, analysis. It was all part of his toolbox, logic, whatever.
Right, and then Hironaka was there.
Hironaka was there, that's right. And Zariski was in retirement, but he was around. And I had gone to Harvard as the successor. Lars Alfors had retired, and they needed a complex analyst. So that was, they don't have positions at Harvard, but that was sort of what I was brought there for. And Shady Hill Square was the old Shady Hill School. So it was all those old houses around the square. And as you say, we bought the one which had been a residence, it had been a hippie commune. And the place was a disaster, which is why we could afford it inside. The wiring didn't work, the plumbing didn't work, there was no heating, the roof leaked, etc.
I remember vividly Cleve, your Cambridge plumber, who you got to be friends with, and who was, definitely part of the local color.
He was a real character, and I remember very much one day he was fixing a pipe in our bathroom, and he was squeezed into a small space. And the guy had a big mustache, and he was in this small space with his flamethrower, or what do we call it, lighting a cigarette and singeing the mustache. I mean, he was a real character.